The icy wind whipped against the small figure huddled on the sidewalk, the thick blanket she clutched barely keeping the cold at bay. Snow fell in heavy, restless flakes, settling over the city in a hushed white blanket, but the girl didn't notice the beauty of the winter night. Her small voice, trembling and raw, pierced the quiet as she looked up at the towering man in the black overcoat who had just stopped in front of her. "Sir, my mom. She never came back last night," she whispered, her lips quivering and her big brown eyes shimmering with tears. I don't know where she is. She didn't come home." And I'm scared. The CEO, a man used to commanding boardrooms and making decisions that affected millions, froze. He rarely encountered a situation that couldn't be solved with a call, a contract, or a strategic move. But here, on the snow-covered sidewalk, staring at a little girl who seemed so fragile yet so fiercely alone, he felt a strange, unfamiliar knot in his chest. "Hey, it's okay. Calm down," he said gently, crouching to her level, though the cold seeped through his tailored suit. "Do you remember where you saw her last?" I don't know. She said she'd be back by dinner, but..." Her voice broke completely, and a fresh wave of tears rolled down her cheeks. She buried her face in her hands, shivering not just from the cold, but from the fear and uncertainty that had kept her awake all night. The CEO looked around. The streets were nearly empty, save for a few late-night cars and the distant hum of streetlights flickering through the falling snow. He noticed the girl's backpack, torn and worn, lying beside her like a silent witness to her struggle. Something inside him tightened. He couldn't leave her here, alone and trembling, the world too harsh for a child in such distress. "All right," he said, his voice firm now, cutting through the swirling snow. "We're going to find your mom. But I need you to stay close to me, okay?" She nodded, her small hand trembling as she reached for his. Her fingers barely wrapped around his, but it was enough. Enough to tether her to a sliver of hope. They started moving down the street together, the crunch of snow under their feet, the only sound besides the whisper of the wind, dot as they walked. She told him snippets of conversations, places she remembered her mother mentioning, fleeting descriptions of the faces she had seen. The CEO listened, absorbing every detail, formulating a plan on the fly. But even as he led her through the labyrinth of snow-dusted streets, he felt the enormity of what they were up against. A single night had turned into a terrifying void for this little girl. Every storefront window reflected the little girl's fear back at him, magnifying the urgency. He couldn't shake the image of her alone in the cold if he failed. And deep down, he realized this wasn't just a simple search. It was a test of courage, empathy, and the fragility of trust. Could he, a man accustomed to control and precision, truly navigate this world of fear and uncertainty for someone so innocent? Then, as they turned a corner near an abandoned park, the sound of a distant shout froze them both. It was faint, swallowed by the wind, yet unmistakable. The girl's eyes widened. Did you hear that?" she asked, clutching his hand tighter. He nodded, every instinct screaming that whatever it was connected to her mother. He could feel the pull of urgency tighten around his chest, a mixture of dread and determination. He bent down again, meeting her gaze. "We're going to find her. But we have to hurry. I think she's not far. But the snow, it's getting worse." The girl nodded, a spark of hope flickering in her tear-streaked eyes. And as the wind howled around them, the CEO realized that this search was no longer just about a missing person. It was about confronting a world where fear, hope, and human courage collided in the most unpredictable way. Somewhere in the whiteness ahead, the truth waited, and it wasn't going to reveal itself easily. The city streets blurred past as the CEO guided the little girl through the snow. her small hand gripping his coat sleeve like a lifeline. In the glow of the streetlights, the snowflakes seemed almost magical, twinkling against the dark night, yet the cold gnawed at every inch of exposed skin. Inside, though, the CEO was fighting a different kind of chill, a creeping awareness of how little he knew about this child, or the life she'd been forced to endure. He had learned her name Amira. She was only 8, but there was a weight in her eyes that made her seem older. Seasoned by hardship no child should ever endure. Her story unfolded slowly between shivering breaths. Her mother, she said, worked long hours at a hospital on the outskirts of the city. Sometimes she didn't return until late at night. Sometimes Amira's small apartment was quiet for hours, filled only with the ticking of the clock and the sounds of her own anxious thoughts. I always wait for her," Amira whispered, her voice barely audible above the whistling wind. "I make dinner for us sometimes, even if it's just soup. She tells me to eat, but I can't eat if she's not home. What if something happens?" She looked up at him, eyes wide, glistening with unshed tears. "Last night, she said she'd be back early, but she didn't come." The CEO, whose life had been defined by deadlines, boardrooms, and calculated risks, felt a pang of guilt he didn't expect. He had always believed he was generous in his own way, but generosity had never looked like this, walking through freezing streets in the middle of a snowstorm to comfort a frightened child. With no clear plan, no safety net, just instinct and empathy. He realized that all his wealth, all his power, meant nothing in the face of someone's raw fear dot as they passed a corner shop with a flickering neon sign. Amira's gaze drifted to a small collection of stray cats huddled together near a dumpster, their fur damp and matted from the snow. She sighed, a soft, aching sound. "Sometimes I think of them. They don't have anyone either. But at least they don't worry if someone's gone. They just survive." The CEO felt the weight of her words settle over him. Survival. That was all she had known. All her mother had provided, a fragile, precarious existence built on routines and hope. But now, even that routine was broken. He wanted to promise her safety, but he didn't know if he could. All he knew was that he would not let her face the night alone. He asked questions carefully, gently coaxing details from her memory. Did she see anyone following her mother? Did she notice anything unusual at the hospital or on the way home? Each answer painted a picture of normalcy until a single detail stood out. A man in a dark coat, standing near the hospital's side entrance the previous evening. Amira hadn't paid much attention then, but now she remembered him clearly. The CEO's mind raced. He had seen enough in his life to know that coincidences often hid danger. He felt a surge of protective urgency. Someone had noticed her mother, and now the question hung heavy between them. Had she simply gotten delayed, or was something more sinister at play? They stopped for a moment at the edge of a frozen park. The snow clung to the branches of bare trees, creating a landscape both beautiful and desolate. Amira's shoulders shook, either from cold or fear, or perhaps both. The CEO knelt beside her, brushing a snowflake from her hair. "Amira, we're going to find her. I promise you, we will." But promises are fragile in the face of uncertainty, and deep down, he knew the night was only beginning. Each step forward could reveal comfort or danger. And the city that had seemed so familiar in daylight now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and white emptiness. Suddenly, a muffled cry carried across the park, barely audible over the wind. Amira froze. Her face paled. That sounded like her. The CEO's heart raced. He scanned the dark outline of the park, the snow obscuring visibility, turning every tree into a potential hiding place, every shadow into a threat. He knew that whatever lay ahead, It was going to test both of them in ways neither could predict. He took her hand firmly. "Stay close. No matter what happens, we stay together." And as the wind howled louder, the park's silence pressing down like a living thing, he realized that this search for a mother in the snowstorm was about to uncover more than a missing person. It would expose vulnerabilities, fears, and secrets that had been buried long before tonight. The figure emerged slowly from the blur of snow, and for a heartbeat, hope surged in Amira's chest. Her mother? Could it finally be her? She ran a few steps forward, slipping on the icy ground, and the CEO caught her just in time, steadying her with a firm, protective hand. But as they drew closer, the shape resolved into something far less comforting. It wasn't her mother. It was a man, hunched beneath the weight of the snowstorm, his coat ragged, eyes hidden beneath a low-brimmed hat. He stopped abruptly when he saw them, the tension in his posture unmistakable. Amira's lips trembled. "Mom?" she called, her voice barely audible over the wind. The man shook his head slowly, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. "Not tonight, little girl, but maybe soon." His tone carried a chilling undertone, a deliberate mockery that made Amira flinch back. The CEO stepped forward, his voice firm, authoritative. "Stay away from her." The man laughed, a harsh, grating sound that cut through the cold air. "Or what? You'll chase me through the snow? You think you can protect her?" He took a deliberate step closer, the crunch of snow under his worn boots echoing ominously. Amira buried herself behind the CEO instinctively, her small frame shaking violently. The reality of their vulnerability hit her hard. This wasn't just a lost night. It was the first real brush with danger, and she felt utterly powerless. She wanted to cry, to scream, to run, but fear had rooted her to the spot. The CEO's mind raced. He had bodyguards, security protocols, and wealth at his disposal, but none of that mattered here, in this park with a frightened child and a mysterious man in the snow. He had to think fast. Every instinct screamed at him that this encounter was dangerous, but retreating could make the situation worse. "Who are you? What do you want?" he demanded, keeping his voice steady, even as his pulse surged. The man tilted his head, eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and menace. Sometimes, people lose track of what belongs to them. And sometimes, they find out too late. He paused, glancing at Amira as if measuring her worth, then stepped back into the shadows. "Enjoy your search, sir. I'll be watching." And just like that, he was gone, swallowed by the darkness and the falling snow. Amira's shoulders slumped in relief and terror, her hands clutching the CEO's coat as though she could anchor herself to him and make the world safe again. He was scary, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "I think he wanted to take her? Or hurt her?" The CEO shook his head slowly, trying to suppress the anger bubbling within him. "It's okay. You're safe with me. He's gone for now, but we have to be careful. Whoever he is, he knows your mother. That makes this more complicated." For the first time since the search began, Amira truly felt the weight of her mother's absence. She hadn't just been alone for a night tonight, was a warning that the world outside her apartment could be frightening, cruel, and unrelenting. Her small hands gripped the CEO's tightly, seeking reassurance, desperately hoping he could hold back the storm that was closing in on them. They pressed forward through the snow, every sound amplified in the eerie silence of the park. The crunch of their boots on ice seemed deafening. Amira's mind raced with questions, none of which had answers. Why did that man target her mother? What could have happened last night? And most painfully, what if she never found her? The CEO noticed the change in her demeanor, the way her steps slowed, the slight tremor in her voice, the hesitant glances over her shoulder. He realized that fear had moved from the external world to her very heart. Protecting her would be about more than finding her mother. It would be about shielding her from the emotional damage that danger could inflict. And just as he took a deep breath to keep them moving forward, a sudden sound, a metallic clang followed by hurried footsteps, echoed through the park. The snowstorm's howling couldn't mask it. Amira froze, and the CEO's gut tightened. This wasn't just another stranger. This was a new threat, closer and faster than before. Amira's small body pressed against the CEO instinctively, her teeth chattering not just from the cold, but from raw, overwhelming fear. The metallic clang had come again, closer this time, echoing against the frozen ground, magnified by the empty park. She buried her face into his coat, trembling violently, wishing desperately for the comfort of her mother, for the warmth of a safe home. But her mother wasn't coming, at least. Not yet, and the chilling realization made her chest ache with a hollow loneliness she couldn't articulate. The CEO's mind raced. He needed to get them out of the open, away from whoever or whatever was closing in. He spotted a small gazebo at the edge of the park, its roof dusted with snow, offering the slightest shelter from the storm and a chance to regroup. He grabbed Amira's hand firmly. "This way, quick," he urged, pulling her along. Amira stumbled on the icy path, slipping multiple times, but he held her steady, his grip unyielding. The wind tore at their faces, the cold biting through gloves and coats, yet neither of them paused. Her fear had frozen her movements into cautious steps, her eyes scanning every shadow, imagining the danger lurking in each one. Once inside the gazebo, Amira sank to her knees, hugging her legs tightly. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and tears streamed freely. I can't do this," she whispered, almost inaudibly. I'm too scared. What if he finds us again? What if my mom? What if she's hurt?" The CEO knelt beside her, pulling a small thermal blanket from his coat and wrapping it around her trembling shoulders. "Look at me, Amira," he said softly. "I know it's scary. I know it feels like the world is closing in. But you're not alone, okay? You've got me. And I promise, we're going to find her. We'll get through this together." Her hands clutched the blanket tightly, seeking warmth, seeking reassurance, seeking anything to make the fear recede. She sniffled, leaning against him, and for a moment, the storm outside faded into a dull roar. She felt a strange, fleeting sense of safety in his presence, though the fear still lingered, prickling at the edges of her mind like icy needles. You really think we'll find her?" she asked, her voice small, almost breaking. The CEO hesitated, searching for the right words. He wanted to promise certainty, to shield her from the terrifying unknown. But he couldn't. All he could do was speak truth wrapped in determination. "I don't know exactly where she is right now," he admitted, "but I know this, she's out there somewhere, and we're going to find her. No one gets to take her from you. Not while I'm here." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of hope piercing through the storm of fear. She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel that the world wasn't entirely cruel. Slowly, she nodded, clutching his hand with renewed grip. She was still small, still fragile, but she had a tether to someone who would not let go. Hours or maybe minutes. It was hard to tell in the endless snowstorm past, intense silence. Amira whispered more about her life, about little things she had missed mentioning before, the quiet routines with her mother, the books they shared, the songs they hummed together. The CEO listened, letting her voice fill the empty, frozen space of the gazebo, allowing her memories to become armor against the fear pressing in from all sides. And yet, even as the warmth of their connection offered a fragile comfort, the reality outside pressed in relentlessly. Snow piled higher against the gazebo, The wind carried whispers that sounded almost human. And somewhere, in the labyrinth of the storming city, Amira's mother remained missing. Suddenly, the sound of crunching snow returned, heavier and more deliberate than before. This time, it wasn't fleeting or distant. It was close, unnervingly close, like someone was moving around the gazebo, circling them. Amira clutched the CEO's arm, her small body shaking violently. He stood slowly, peering into the swirling light, every muscle tensed. Whoever was out there, they were hunting, and the night was far from over. The shadow lingered just beyond the gazebo, shrouded in swirling snow, and the CEO's instincts screamed danger. He stepped slightly forward, shielding Amira behind him, eyes scanning every contour of the darkness. Then, through the whiteness, a familiar figure emerged, tall, lean, and unmistakably human. But as the snow fell, blurring the outline, the CEO's mind refused to process what he was seeing. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't an attacker. It was her mother. Amira's eyes widened, a mixture of relief and confusion flooding her expression. "Mom?" she whispered, disbelief and hope battling in her voice. Her mother's face, pale and streaked with snow, seemed almost fragile, yet her eyes carried something far heavier: fear, exhaustion, and something unsaid, something that made the CEO's stomach tighten. Her mother knelt immediately, pulling Amira into a tight embrace, burying her face in her daughter's hair. "Oh, my baby. I'm so sorry," she murmured, voice trembling. I didn't mean to scare you. The CEO held back, watching silently, though his mind buzzed with questions. How had she disappeared? Why had she not returned home as promised? The relief on Amira's face was palpable, but something in the mother's demeanor felt like a warning. Finally, she pulled back slightly, revealing eyes wide with desperation. "I didn't want anyone to see me like this," she admitted, glancing briefly at the CEO. I had to leave. I can't explain everything right now, but you mustn't follow me. Not yet." Amira frowned, confusion and hurt mingling with her relief. "Mom, I was so scared. I thought," her voice cracked. Her mother shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I know, baby. I know, but I had no choice. Please, you have to trust me. And this man," she said, gesturing toward the CEO. "He can help, but not everything is safe to explain out here." "Not yet." The CEO stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Ma'am, whatever is happening, you're putting yourself at risk and her. You need help, and we can't waste time." Her mother glanced at him, a flash of recognition and fear crossing her face. "You don't understand? It's not just about me," she said quietly. "There are people, dangerous people. If they know I'm here, if they know we're together." Her voice faltered, but the message was clear. The danger was far from over. Amira looked between them, her small fingers clutching her mother's coat. "Mom, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come home?" "I wanted to," her mother whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "But I couldn't. I was being followed. I had to hide. I didn't want you to see me scared. I thought I could handle it alone. I thought I could protect you by staying away." The CEO's heart tightened at her words. He realized then that the night's danger had been far more complex than a simple missing person. Her mother's disappearance was deliberate, a shadowed plan meant to hide her from something or someone far more sinister than a winter storm. Amira's lips trembled as she looked at her mother. "I was so scared. I thought I'd lost you." Her mother hugged her again, voice breaking. "You'll never lose me, I promise. But we have to be careful. There's no time to waste. The people after me, they're closer than we think." The CEO's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a snowstorm or a wandering child anymore. This was a confrontation with an invisible enemy, one who had orchestrated fear, confusion, and isolation with precision. He had assumed the challenge was simply to locate a missing woman, but now the stakes had multiplied exponentially. As the wind howled around them, carrying the distant sounds of footsteps and the faint creak of snow-laden branches, the mother spoke again, her voice urgent. "We can't stay here. We have to move, but I don't know who I can trust completely. Only one person, only one person." Amira looked at the CEO, her eyes wide with trust. The CEO nodded subtly, signaling that he would stand by them no matter what. Then, a sudden, chilling sound, a low, deliberate whistle, cut through the night. It wasn't wind. It wasn't random. Someone was deliberately signaling them. The mother froze, her face paling. "They know we're here," she whispered. "We have to run, now." And in that instant, the snowstorm became more than a backdrop. It became a battlefield, a whitewashed arena where fear, courage, and survival collided. The snowstorm had become a relentless wall of white, every flake a tiny obstacle, every gust of wind a challenge to their progress. The CEO's coat was damp, icy water seeping through the fabric, and his shoes skidded across the frozen ground. As he led Amira and her mother through the twisting streets, footsteps purposeful, heavy, and deliberate echoed somewhere behind them, closing in with terrifying precision. Whoever was pursuing them knew exactly where they were. "Keep moving. Don't stop," the CEO urged, glancing back to ensure Amira stayed close. Her small hand gripped his tightly, trusting him implicitly, even as fear made her legs stiff and slow. Her mother followed closely, glancing over her shoulder, eyes wide with apprehension. The air was thick with tension, the storm amplifying. Every sound, the crunch of snow underfoot, the sharp whistle of the wind, the distant shouts that might have been human or something more sinister. They ducked into a narrow alleyway, walls of brick and frozen icicles forming a crude corridor through the storm. The CEO scanned the shadows, every instinct screaming danger, yet he knew they couldn't stop. He needed a plan, and fast. Amira's mother leaned against the wall, struggling to catch her breath. We can't keep this up forever," she gasped, voice trembling. "They'll catch us if we don't do something." He nodded, eyes darting to the end of the alley, where a faint glow of a lamppost offered a potential escape route. "We need to split up," he said, his mind calculating the risk. "I'll draw them toward me. You and Amira get to that corner, then head for the main road. Understand?" Amira's eyes filled with fear. "No, I want to stay with you." Her mother tightened her hold on Amira's hand. "We have to. He'll keep you safe. You two run while he distracts them." The CEO shook his head, his jaw set. "We'll do this together. But I need you to trust me. Move fast when I give the signal." A shout rang out from behind, closer this time, cutting through the storm. The CEO's pulse surged. The pursuers were gaining ground. He knew there was no time to hesitate. He shoved a small flare into his coat pocket, something to create a diversion if needed, and motioned for the mother and daughter to run. They sprinted toward the corner, snow flying around their boots, hearts pounding in sync with the frantic rhythm of survival. The CEO's mind raced with every scenario, every potential danger, every strategy to keep them ahead of the relentless chase. The distant shouts grew louder. Closer, he could hear the crunch of boots in sync with the rush of his own heart. Suddenly, a figure lunged from the shadows, aiming for the mother. The CEO reacted instinctively, tackling the attacker into a heap of snow, his adrenaline pushing him past exhaustion. Amira screamed, clutching her mother's hand even tighter, her small body trembling as fear threatened to overwhelm her. "You okay?" he shouted to the mother, breathing heavily, snow plastering his hair to his forehead. She nodded, determination flaring in her eyes. "We have to keep going." Now. He grabbed Amira, running alongside her mother, navigating narrow streets and icy pavements with a desperate urgency. Every step brought them closer to safety, or so he hoped. The storm battered them, but they pressed on, fueled by desperation and the singular goal of survival. Then, finally, the glow of a familiar building emerged through the snow, the hospital where her mother worked. Though battered and exhausted, they had reached a place of refuge. The pursuers halted at the edge of the street, their frustration evident, but the CEO didn't falter. He knew this was only temporary. The danger might not be over, but the immediate threat had been managed for now. Amira collapsed into her mother's arms, sobs racking her body, relief mingling with lingering fear. The CEO stood close, keeping watch, knowing that the night had tested them all beyond expectation. Yet in that frozen moment, a fragile victory was theirs. They had survived together, but the storm had left its mark physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The path ahead would be challenging, and the shadows of that night would linger. But the bond formed in the heart of danger had created a courage neither Amira nor her mother would ever forget. The next morning arrived soft and golden, as if the sun itself felt mercy for the two fragile souls beginning to heal under one roof. Alina woke before the children, before Ethan, before the house stirred with footsteps and breakfast clatter. She sat by the kitchen window, watching light spill over the snow, turning every drift into sheets of quiet silver. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was waking up for a battle. She was waking up to a life. Ethan entered quietly, his hair still damp from the shower, his voice rough with sleep. "You're up early." "So are you," she whispered. He smiled, faint but warm. "I didn't want to miss a morning like this." Her breath caught. This man who had taken her hand in the blizzard, who had tucked the blanket over her when she fell asleep on the couch the night before, who looked at her now like she was someone precious. He was dangerous in all the ways she never expected. Not with harm, but with hope. The children soon thundered down the stairs, filling the house with noise, laughter, and messy enthusiasm. Lily ran straight to Alina, hugging her waist. "Miss Alina, can we have pancakes today? The fluffy ones you make?" Alina looked at Ethan for permission, but he shook his head with a soft laugh. "Hey, I didn't say no. I just wanted to see if she'd say yes before you made that adorable begging face." Lily grinned, victorious. Breakfast became a small, beautiful chaos. Flour on noses. Ethan flipping pancakes too aggressively. Jack pretending to be a food critic. Owen filming the entire scene for reasons only a 9-year-old could understand. And Alina, she moved through the home like she'd always belonged there. After breakfast, Ethan asked her to step outside with him. The snow had settled thick and white across the yard, sparkling under the morning sun. "Alina," he began slowly, watching his breath form clouds in the air. "Last night, when I held your hand, it wasn't just to warm you." Her eyes lifted to his, startled. "I told myself I wasn't ready for anything after my wife died, that I'd never feel something real again." He exhaled hard, as if admitting that hurt. "But when you came into our lives, you didn't just help the kids. You helped me. You reminded me what a home is supposed to feel like." Her lips parted, trembling. "You're gentle," he continued. "You're strong even when you think you're not. You care for my children like they're your own. And I..." He stopped, emotion tightening his throat. "I don't want you to think I feel pity for you, or that I offered my home because you were lost. I want you here because you make this place feel alive again." Tears blurred her vision instantly. "Ethan, I don't know if I'm ready." "I know," he said softly. "And I'm not asking for an answer now." He reached out, not to pull her close, but simply to offer his hand steady, warm, patient. "I'm asking for one thing," he whispered. "Let me walk beside you. No rush, no pressure. Just stay. With me, with us." The wind was silent. The world was still. Slowly, with a courage that tasted like rebirth, Elena placed her hand in his not as a woman. Abandoned, not as a guest in someone's home, but as someone choosing for the first time in far too long her own future. And Ethan closed his fingers gently around hers, sealing a promise neither of them dared name yet, but both already felt.